Democrats win on health care, environment, women's rights, respect for democracy. But on those issues, I bet you that are the big ones that they vote on more: crime, immigration, wars, economy, corruption. So that's the takeaway there.
The only thing the Democratic Party stands for today is opposition to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I just read Kamala Harris's new book, 107
No,
Days.
you didn't.
I did?
No, you didn't. When they ask who has a better plan, Republicans crushing it on crime, immigration, wars, the economy, even corruption. Democrats win by 2 points on respect for democracy. The summit.
Cameras cut in. Applause fades, and the room tightens like a held breath. Tonight's chatter is exploding with claims that Bill Maher didn't just critique. He carved straight through the spin on live TV. And fans are shocked at what he allegedly said about Kamala Harris. Emotions ran high as viewers insist he mocked the "I never had a chance" narrative and demanded something bigger than slogans. "If there's a plan, say it," a clipped voice echoes from the segment, and suddenly the comment sections detonate. Some call it honesty, others call it humiliation. The party left,
especially when it's false, is not a great advertisement for leadership. Kamala Harris's new memoir of the 24 election is called 107 Days, but it should have been called Everyone Sucks But Me. 107 Days is a victim's title because, get it, she only had 107 days to win. Yeah, and $1.5 billion and a built-in army of about 75 million people who'd vote for any human-adjacent life form that wasn't...
Left divided. On one side, loyalists insist this is just late-night sarcasm. On the other, frustrated voters whisper that the mask finally slipped. "Don't tell me the clock beat you," a voice reenacts. "Tell me why you deserve to win." And that line, true or exaggerated, becomes the spark. Reports swirl about a cupcake moment, a blame game montage, even a wink at celebrity activists. Nothing here is confirmed fact. These are the headlines people are passing around, the sound bites looping in 1,000 group chats. But the tension, real enough to taste. Because if this on-air takedown happened the way viewers claim...
107 days, nothing is ever Kamala's fault. Biden lets her down by not stepping down sooner. Pouty face emoji. Gavin Newsom, he was asked for his endorsement, but texted, "Hiking will call back." But then never did. And then he didn't even ask her to prom. America itself lets Kamala down by not being ready for the running mate she really wanted, Pete Buttigieg. So she's stuck with the Home Depot paint salesman. And the rest is herstory. Poor Kamala. We made her the star of a rom-com and didn't even give her a gay best friend.
Claim. Then tonight isn't just late-night TV. It's a reckoning. The studio lights were warm but tense, and the crowd didn't know whether to laugh or brace themselves. Bill Maher leaned forward in his chair, that familiar smirk curving at the edges of his mouth. The kind that meant something unscripted was about to happen. Across from him, his guests shuffled their notes nervously, half aware that tonight's discussion was already spiraling out of the safe zone. The audience sensed it too. The segment had started innocently, a talk about polling data, but somehow the words drifted toward Kamala Harris, her book, and the chaos that
on
seemed to...
election night, when it was clear she'd lost, an aide peeled the words "Madam President" off the cupcakes before handing them out. Oh, geez, that's like a scene from Bridget Jones Runs for President, for Christ's sake.
To follow her every political move. That's when everything changed. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even flinch. He just said it. The Democratic Party, Maher began slowly, has built an entire identity on opposing one man. But if your entire platform is just hating Trump, what do you stand for? Silence hung in the air. One guest forced a laugh. The kind you give when you hope a joke will land differently. But Maher wasn't joking. He flipped through a few printed pages on his desk and added, And then we have Kamala's new memoir, 107 Days. Should have been called Everyone Sucks But Me.
Look, ladies, I know this isn't fair, but we're all always running against the worst cliche of who people think we are. Women Democrats can't look oversensitive or preachy or unable to laugh at themselves. They also can't look silly, like Gretchen Whitmer did, trying to hide in the Oval Office. They have to look brave and strong.
The audience gasped, unsure whether to clap or cringe. Reports say that moment set off a storm that hasn't stopped since. Viewers claimed you could see the shock ripple across the set. One of the producers allegedly tried to cut to commercial early, but Maher just kept going. Look, he said, tapping the papers like they were evidence. You had $1.5 billion, a media that adored you, and 75 million people ready to vote for anything with a D next to it. Don't tell me you ran out of time. Laughter erupted, but it was uneasy, hesitant, like everyone in the room knew this was crossing a line. By the time the clip hit social media, it was chaos. Some commenters called it the most honest 5 minutes of...
for the woman party, that all the guys were speaking out for Jimmy Kimmel when Trump went after him, except on the woman's show, where for 5 days the outspoken hosts...
television in years. Others said Maher had finally gone too far, attacking someone who was already down. Hashtags started trending overnight, some cheering him on, others demanding an apology. Behind the scenes, rumors swirled that the network executives weren't happy. He made her look weak, one insider whispered. And that's the one thing you don't do in politics. But Maher seemed unfazed. He'd done what he always does, said what everyone else was afraid to say out loud. Meanwhile, people close to Kamala reportedly scrambled. Aides denied she'd even seen the segment, but anonymous sources told gossip outlets she was furious. One leak claimed she threw the book manuscript against a wall and muttered something about betrayal from within.
Fifth day, they rose and said, "No one silences us. No one had to. You silenced yourself." Whoopi Goldberg continued, "Did you all really think we weren't going to talk about Jimmy Kimmel? No, I thought you would, but then you didn't." 5 days? Talk about needing extra time to get ready. And if you can't take a breath and laugh at that, you're making my point for me.
Others said she laughed it off, calling Maher a tired act chasing relevance. Either way, the public could sense the tension. Every talk show, podcast, and late-night commentator jumped in. Fans were split down the middle. Half admired Maher's bluntness. The other half called it another example of men tearing down women in power. Between outrage and applause, the internet began dissecting every frame of the broadcast. Slow-motion clips of Maher's smirk became memes. The phrase, "Everyone sucks but me," was printed on t-shirts within hours. Political analysts debated whether this moment signaled a cultural shift or just another social media storm. But the real shock came when people began connecting dots. Claiming Maher's remarks...
Really, I'm speaking to the Democrats especially here, because Trump's numbers are down. They're down with Latinos, they're down with blacks, they're down 15 points with whites. And when whites say, "You're not hip anymore," ooh. And yet, in the other poll, on issues, Trump still winning. So this is your big opportunity, Democrats. He's down in the numbers.
Echoed private frustrations within the Democratic Party itself. Anonymous sources close to campaign strategists hinted that his satire was closer to truth than anyone wanted to admit. In the following days, strange stories surfaced. Someone claimed a top donor pulled out of a future project, citing damage control fatigue. Another leak suggested the memoir's publisher was reconsidering its marketing campaign, and in a twist that made the tabloid spin, a late-night insider alleged that a producer from Maher's team received an anonymous call warning them to keep things professional next week. Fans called it intimidation. Skeptics called it conspiracy. Either way, the lines between comedy, commentary, and conflict had blurred beyond...
When they ask who has a better plan, Republicans crushing it on crime, immigration, wars, the economy, even corruption. Democrats win by 2 points on respect for democracy. Now, some of this is just because.
Repair, however, didn't retreat. In the next episode's monologue, he brushed it off. "Apparently, I can't joke about anyone anymore," he said with mock exasperation, prompting laughter from the audience. But hey, if the truth sounds like an insult, maybe that's not my problem. That one line reignited everything. Comment sections exploded again. Celebrities weighed in. An actor tweeted, "Maher's finally saying what the rest of Hollywood whispers after wine number 4. Another replied, "Or maybe he's just punching down because it's easy." For viewers, the drama was addictive. People replayed the segment not because of politics, but because of the emotion. It felt raw, unscripted, human. You could almost feel
It's went on healthcare, environment, women's rights, respect for democracy. But on those issues, I bet you that are the big ones that they vote on more: crime, immigration, wars, economy, corruption. So that's the takeaway there.
The only thing the Democratic Party stands for today is opposition to Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I just read Kamala Harris's new book, 107
No,
Days.
you didn't.
I did.
No, you didn't.
Honestly, that's the
Maher's frustration with the system, his exhaustion with the same recycled narratives. And whether you agreed with him or not, there was something magnetic about the spectacle. That was the beauty and the danger of live television. It turned opinions into earthquakes, humor into headlines, and a few sharp words into a cultural fault line that everyone could feel, but no one could fix. The fallout was immediate and relentless. By sunrise the next day, every major outlet was spinning the story in its own direction. One headline read, "Maher dismantles Kamala's comeback narrative," while another countered, "Comedian crosses line with sexist jab." It didn't matter which version people believed. What mattered was that everyone was talking. Social media feeds were flooded with short clips, remixes, and stitched reactions. Influencers who'd never discussed politics suddenly had opinions. Even late-night competitors couldn't resist weighing in, each trying to capture the moment without looking envious that Maher had landed the viral blow first. Rumors started leaking from within Harris's circle. A journalist claimed to have seen text messages between senior staffers, furious that a so-called ally would humiliate her in front of millions. "This was supposed to be a friendly platform," one message allegedly read. "He ambushed her when she wasn't even there." But others whispered that Maher had simply voiced what insiders had been murmuring for months, that the campaign's defeat wasn't just bad luck or poor timing, but a reflection of something deeper. "People are tired of the script," one strategist admitted anonymously. "They want authenticity, not photo ops, not slogans, something real." As the narrative twisted further, a new subplot emerged, one that made the whole situation feel like a political soap opera. Anonymous reports claimed that Harris's team had been planning a quiet media tour to rebuild her image, starting with select late-night shows. Maher's remarks allegedly derailed that plan completely. Within 48 hours, 2 of those scheduled appearances were postponed due to scheduling conflicts. Fans didn't buy it. They flooded comment sections asking if Harris was hiding from the spotlight. Meanwhile, the segment continued to dominate pop culture. Even comedians were torn. Some praised Maher for bringing edge back to political satire, while others accused him of throwing red meat to trolls. A few female hosts on rival shows delivered subtle digs, making jabs about old men explaining failure to successful women. One even joked, maybe the real problem is he wanted her to laugh at his jokes. That line drew applause, but the undertone was unmistakable. The entertainment world was now choosing sides. Inside the studio, staff members reportedly felt the tension rising. One intern told a blogger that the atmosphere was like walking through a thunderstorm made of coffee and panic. Producers debated whether to cut future jokes involving politicians altogether, fearing backlash, but Maher refused to edit the show's tone. "If I start apologizing for every punchline," he told his writers, "we might as well air reruns of cooking tutorials." It was a defiant statement, and it lit another match under the firestorm. The story took an even stranger turn when viewers noticed that Kamala's memoir, 107 Days, had suddenly shot to the top of several bestseller lists. Cynics accused her team of buying copies to inflate sales, while supporters said Maher's criticism had backfired spectacularly. See? One tweet read, "He tried to tear her down and only made her stronger." But others weren't convinced. "People are buying it out of curiosity," another replied. "They want to see if it's really as bad as he said." Bookstores confirmed they couldn't keep the title in stock. Suddenly, the book that was supposed to fade quietly into history had become the most talked about publication of the year. Then came the alleged phone call that nobody could verify but everyone talked about. A late-night insider claimed Harris's representative reached out to Maher's producer, urging him to de-escalate. Apparently, Maher's response was a dry laugh followed by, "Tell her to come on the show and talk about it." The offer never materialized, but fans ran wild with theories. Some believed negotiations happened behind the scenes and fell apart. Others said Harris refused to dignify the mockery with attention. Either way, that unconfirmed call became legend, a modern myth in the age of viral drama. For days, TV panels dissected the tension like archaeologists uncovering ruins. One pundit argued that Maher had captured the frustration of an exhausted electorate, while another warned that his tone risked normalizing disrespect for public servants. The debate stretched beyond politics. College campuses hosted impromptu forums debating whether comedy still had moral limits. Podcasts discussed the cultural fatigue of performative wokeness versus authentic dissent. Everyone had an angle, and the noise only grew louder. Amid all of this, Maher stayed calm, even smug. During his next appearance on a different network, when asked if he regretted the segment, he smiled and said, "Regret is for people who don't mean what they say." That clip became another viral sensation. Some viewers called it brave. Others said it was arrogance disguised as honesty. Yet no matter the interpretation, his ratings soared. Advertisers, sensing opportunity, doubled down. One insider revealed that the following episode's ad slots sold out in record time. Something shifted beneath the surface. The public conversation started moving away from Kamala's book or Maher's jokes and towards something more uncomfortable: the credibility of the Democratic Party itself. People began echoing his words about leadership and accountability. News commentators, perhaps reluctantly, admitted that the party's messaging had lost momentum. "Maybe," one columnist wrote, "the real issue isn't what Maher said, it's that so many people agreed." And somewhere between laughter and outrage, the nation found itself caught in a strange emotional limbo. Was it satire or was it prophecy? Nobody could tell anymore. And that uncertainty made the whole spectacle even more addictive. As the days rolled into weeks, the Maher versus Kamala saga refused to die down. The internet kept breathing new life into it, dissecting every word, every smirk, every pause. Talk shows turned into battlegrounds. News anchors raised their brows in feigned neutrality, and political commentators sharpened their knives. The controversy wasn't just surviving, it was evolving. Clips of Maher's takedown were now being edited into fan-made montages, set to dramatic music, with captions like "Truth Bomb of the Century" or "The Night Comedy Turned into Confession." Others labeled him the last honest liberal, while his critics accused him of doing the right wing's job for free. It didn't matter which camp you fell into. The spectacle had swallowed everyone whole. Somewhere in Los Angeles, according to alleged insiders, Kamala's team huddled in a private meeting room with drawn blinds and half-drunk coffee cups scattered across the table. One aide was reportedly pacing, muttering, "He's framing her as a caricature." Another whispered, "We can't look thin-skinned. That's what he wants." There was talk of issuing a public statement, maybe even an open letter demanding accountability. But others warned it would only fan the flames. "The more we talk about him," one strategist said, "the more oxygen we give him. Let him burn out." But that fire wasn't dying. It was spreading. Within days, fresh allegations began to surface online. some claiming that parts of Maher's monologue had hit uncomfortably close to home. A political blogger hinted that certain unnamed officials inside the DNC privately agreed with his assessment, but were too afraid to say it publicly. Screenshots circulated of supposed internal messages saying, "He's not wrong about the messaging problem." While no one could verify the authenticity, the story caught on fast. Hashtags like "Like Your Truth Hurts" and "Maher was right" began trending. Intervile, satirical sketches popped up everywhere. One particularly viral parody showed an actress playing Kamala, hosting a fake cooking show titled "Everyone Sucks But Me," awkwardly frosting cupcakes labeled hope, unity, and polling error. The internet laughed, but the undertone was cruel. Even people who once admired her began admitting that the mockery was sticking. "It's not fair," one supporter commented, "but perception becomes reality." As the frenzy grew, Maher was invited onto multiple talk shows to discuss the backlash. He declined most but accepted one, a late-night spot known for its unpredictable tone. As soon as he walked on stage, the host smirked. "Bill, you've managed to offend half the country again. Congrats." Maher grinned back, leaned into the mic and said, "If you never offend anyone, you're probably not saying anything worth hearing." The crowd erupted. People quoted that line for days afterward. It became his new tagline, a sort of verbal brand stamp that reminded everyone why he thrived on controversy. But things took a darker turn when a rumor began circulating that a high-ranking political donor had threatened to pull funding from the network unless Maher toned down the attacks. No one confirmed it, but soon an anonymous source told an online publication that the tension backstage was off the charts. Some staff feared cancellation. Others whispered about standing their ground. If they shut him down now, one crew member allegedly said, they're proving his point. And then, as if scripted for maximum drama, Maher opened his next episode with a simple statement. "No jokes, no music. I've been told to cool it," he said softly. Apparently, honesty is bad for ratings. "But I'm not a weather vane. I don't change direction because the wind shifts." He paused, letting the silence linger. "The truth doesn't care about timing, and neither do I." It wasn't loud, but it hit like a thunderclap. Social media erupted within minutes. Even people who disliked him admitted it was gutsy. The backlash to the backlash came swiftly. Fans flooded the network with messages of support, demanding they let him speak. Someone launched a petition titled "Protect Free Speech in Comedy," which racked up hundreds of thousands of signatures overnight. Protest signs appeared outside studio gates, reading "Satire isn't hate" and "Don't silence truth." The crowd was mixed. College students, political junkies, and ordinary citizens drawn by the spectacle. One man told a reporter, "I don't even watch his show, but I'll stand here for the right to joke." Back in Washington, however, things were far less jovial. Sources close to Democratic leadership hinted that the fallout from the controversy had created fractures within the party. Some members reportedly wanted to confront the issue head-on, while others pushed for complete silence. "It's a no-win situation," one insider sighed. "Acknowledge it, and you validate him. Ignore it, and you look weak." The internal memo that followed, leaked within hours, advised all members to stay on message and avoid direct comment on late-night commentary. The irony didn't go unnoticed. Amid the political tug-of-war, Maher's ratings soared to their highest in years. Analysts called it the controversy dividend. Clips of his monologues were being shared by people who hadn't tuned in since the early 2000s. Advertisers competed for airtime. Even the skeptics couldn't deny it. The scandal had revived his show in a way no marketing campaign ever could. And through it all, Kamala remained silent. No tweets, no interviews, no sound bites. That silence became its own narrative. Is she plotting a response? One headline teased. Or has she decided the circus isn't worth joining? Supporters urged her to rise above it, to show grace under fire. But critics interpreted her quiet as avoidance. "When you don't defend your own story," a columnist wrote, "someone else will rewrite it for you." Then came the photo that reignited everything. A candid shot of Kamala leaving an upscale restaurant, looking weary but composed, clutching a copy of her own book. The image spread like wildfire. Commentators called it symbolic, tragic, powerful. One viral caption read, "She's reading her own redemption arc." Another mocked, "Maybe she's editing the sequel." 107 excuses. Fans rushed to her defense, calling the jokes cruel. Yet every reaction, every meme, every think piece only deepened the cultural obsession. By now, the story had grown far beyond politics. It was about fame, image, and the fine line between confidence and delusion. People weren't just arguing about who was right. They were projecting their own frustrations onto the two figures. To some, Maher represented brutal honesty. To others, Kamala symbolized perseverance in the face of ridicule. Both had become larger-than-life archetypes in a drama no one could stop watching. And as the cameras kept rolling and the comment sections filled with new theories, one question lingered, whispered across living rooms, podcasts, and newsrooms alike. When does a joke stop being a joke and start becoming the truth? The next week, the world tuned in again, half out of curiosity, half out of disbelief, to see if Bill Maher would double down or finally back off. The studio audience buzzed like a live wire before the cameras even rolled. A few people in the front rows whispered nervously, wondering if tonight would be the night the network pulled the plug mid-show. Instead, Maher strolled out with that same calm smirk, greeted by thunderous applause that felt less like laughter and more like a dare. He waited for the cheers to fade, leaned on the desk, and began quietly. "You know," he said, "people keep asking if I hate Kamala. I don't. I just hate the illusion that pretending is leadership." That single line hit harder than any insult he could have thrown. The audience froze, and somewhere backstage, producers probably held their breath. Interview 11/01/11/20. His monologue that night wasn't wild or cruel. It was surgical. He talked about accountability, about how every time someone loses, they write a book instead of facing why it happened. "We've turned politics into therapy," he said, "and elections into confessionals. Everyone's always the victim. No one ever just lost." He paused again, scanning the crowd. "Look, I get it. She's smart. She's ambitious. But so are a million others who don't get to call an autobiography a diagnosis." The crowd broke into laughter, but it was uneasy laughter again, the kind that comes when truth hides behind comedy. Meanwhile, out in the world beyond that studio, the dominoes were still falling. Talk radio hosts replayed his new remarks on loop. Political commentators scrambled to keep up with the public mood. It wasn't just another viral moment anymore. It had become a movement of people disillusioned with political theater. Some called it Maherism, the unfiltered rejection of scripted empathy and rehearsed outrage. Others dismissed it as shock liberalism, a desperate grab for attention from a fading brand. Yet despite the noise, something about his tone resonated deeper than anyone expected. A leaked report claimed that Kamala's inner circle met again that same evening. The conversation, according to an unnamed aide, was strained and tense. "Every time we stay quiet, he defines the narrative," one voice allegedly said. Another replied, "And every time we answer him, he wins again." They were trapped, damned if they responded, powerless if they didn't. Someone suggested confronting him directly on air, maybe even joining his show unannounced. But that idea died quickly. "He's not afraid of confrontation," a strategist muttered. "He thrives on it." The following morning, a mysterious tweet appeared from an account that fans claimed belonged to one of Kamala's close friends. It read simply, "He'll joke now, but history won't laugh with him." It went viral instantly. Thousands of replies flooded in, some supportive, others mocking. But the post disappeared within hours. Screenshots kept it alive, though, spreading like wildfire through every corner of the internet. Theories bloomed again. Had Kamala finally broken her silence? Was it a cryptic threat or just a coincidence? No one knew. And that uncertainty made the story even juicier. Then came an unexpected twist. An unplanned phone interview on a local station where Maher, sounding more reflective than before, said, "I don't dislike her personally. I dislike the performance of victimhood. And that's not about one person. It's about everyone who's forgotten how to just admit failure." He chuckled softly. "Honestly, maybe I'm the bad guy here. But maybe the bad guy's just the one who stopped pretending." That clip spread faster than any of his previous jabs. People debated whether it was an olive branch or another subtle jab wrapped in self-awareness. Whatever it was, it pulled even more eyes to the story. Behind the scenes, the network reportedly received record engagement numbers. Advertisers were ecstatic. Executives were conflicted. One memo leaked to a gossip site read, "We're benefiting from chaos, and that's dangerous." But in the entertainment industry, danger sells. Producers quietly extended Maher's contract, even as public petitions circulated calling for his removal. It was hypocrisy at its finest, but no one seemed to care anymore. Viewers were addicted. The controversy had become the show. And yet somewhere amid the noise, a strange shift began to happen. Younger viewers, those who had once dismissed Maher as outdated, started quoting him in debates. Podcasts discussed his words not as jokes, but as cultural commentary. "It's not about Kamala anymore," one host said. "It's about how we've all built this illusion where image matters more than truth." His point, once dismissed as cynical, was starting to sound like prophecy. That week, a poll appeared showing a sharp drop in public confidence across both major parties. The timing wasn't lost on anyone. Analysts called it the truth fatigue effect. People weren't angry anymore. They were exhausted. And in that exhaustion, Maher's voice, sarcastic, weary, unapologetic, seemed to echo what millions were feeling but couldn't articulate. As for Kamala, reports said she retreated from public appearances entirely for several weeks. Her team shifted focus to smaller community-based events, trying to rebuild her image from the ground up. When she finally re-emerged at a charity dinner in Washington, the cameras caught her smiling, composed, graceful as ever. But the eyes told a different story. They were focused, almost defiant, like someone who decided to stop explaining herself. The applause was polite but cautious. The cameras flashed, and within minutes, that single appearance became another trending clip. When asked later about the ongoing feud, Maher gave a quiet, almost resigned answer. "This was never about her. It's about the machine we've all built. If my words hurt, maybe it's because they hit something real." It wasn't a punchline. It was a confession disguised as commentary. The audience that once laughed now listened. The feud that began as satire had transformed into something heavier, almost philosophical. And by the end of it all, both sides had changed. Kamala learned that silence speaks louder than outrage, and Maher learned that truth, no matter how sharp, always leaves scars. Fans remained divided, still arguing in the comments about who was right and who went too far. But one thing everyone agreed on: the night he called out pretending as leadership would go down as one of the most unforgettable moments in modern television. Unforgettable moments in modern television. And as the lights faded on that week's episode, the screen lingered on Maher's half-smile before cutting to black, leaving viewers hanging in that familiar space between laughter and discomfort. The space where entertainment and truth quietly shake hands, knowing they'll meet again. And that's where the story leaves us, caught between laughter, outrage, and the uncomfortable truth that no one saw coming. What started as a late-night jab has turned into one of the most talked-about media moments of the year. A clash that blurred the lines between comedy, politics, and raw honesty. Some call it courage, others call it cruelty, but everyone agrees. It got people talking. Was Bill Maher right to call out what he saw as performative politics? Or did he cross a line by tearing down a fellow Democrat on live television? Was Kamala's silence strength or strategy? And more importantly, what does this say about how far we've drifted from genuine accountability in modern leadership? We'll let you decide. Drop your thoughts below. Was this truth-telling or just another round of televised drama? Do you think Kamala should respond publicly? Or is staying silent the smarter move? Let us know where you stand, because this conversation isn't ending here. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to stay updated on the biggest political showdowns and celebrity controversies shaking up Hollywood and Washington alike, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload. We've got more stories coming that'll make you question what's real, what's scripted, and what's just show business wearing a suit. Until next time, stay curious, stay skeptical, and remember, sometimes the loudest laughs come from the moments that cut the deepest.